Hi everybody and welcome back to Clever Melon. This week we are covering our episode 4 of our Introduction to Business series, and we're going to be looking at the topic of business and economics. This is going to be part 1 of a mini-series within our main Introduction to Business series, and we're going to be really diving into how business and economics works together. So let's get this melon on the roll. So before we dive right into the main work, let's have a quick recap of what we covered in the previous 2 episodes. So in episode 2, we discussed something called the business environments. And if you remember, this was all about the micro environment and the macro environment, and we looked at how we analyze both these environments through a SWOT analysis for the micro environment and a pestle analysis for the macro environment. And this terminology is going to have a really important role as we continue forward in our whole series, not just in economics, but throughout business management and learning about business. And if we continue to look back at our previous episode, which was episode 3, where we covered the factors of production, we talked about those 5 factors of production: labor and land and knowledge and capital and entrepreneurship. And in economics, this is going to have a really important role. All of these factors are going to come back in some way or form, and we're going to really look at how that works together with economics and business because of these different aspects that we've covered just under business management itself. So let's look at a quick example before we really dive into everything. So when we're talking about an economy, let's just look at the U.S.A, for example. So here in the U.S.A, we have what's termed a capitalistic economy, which we're going to get into in our next episode. But let's just look at the main thing here today. What is driving an economy? So here in the U.S., we have the capitalistic economy, like I mentioned. But what is the driving force behind that type of economy? Well, for us, it's that freedom that we have to actually own a business. We rely on small business ownership. We rely on entrepreneurship in order to motivate other people to take risks and to go and actually create businesses, which creates new products and services, and in turn creates and generates both jobs and wealth. And that actually helps to motivate our people in our country to improve our economy, and it drives our economy because of these actions that people are taking through small business ownership or entrepreneurship. So how does that fit into our definition of what economics is actually all around and about? So economics is basically the study of how we are using certain resources and using that to create products and services that we then go and allocate to other people, such as individuals, or to organizations. And out of this, we actually see the terminology that we covered in episode 2 with our business environments kind of speak back to this, because we have 2 branches of economics. Our first is microeconomics, and our second is macroeconomics. So you can see that they're kind of getting that idea going about how we are kind of being able to apply the business environments to economics and how it's going to be seeing a similar kind of concept going around here. But let's get into it more so we can understand how microeconomics and macroeconomics actually interplay with each other and what they really mean. So when we are talking about the microenvironment, we're really focusing in on behavior. We want to see why certain individuals, organizations are behaving differently in a marketplace, or what is prompting them to behave in a certain way. Let's use an example here. I'm not going to use melons. We're going to use lemons instead. So with lemons, let's say that they have a great competitor, which is limes. So if we have lemons and limes competing in the same marketplace, and let's say that one day our market factors determine that our lemons are going to be priced more expensive than our limes, which doesn't make logical sense because normally limes are more expensive than lemons in the real world. But for example, let's just say that. What is that going to do to our consumer market? How are we going to see a change? The question is here, why are we going to see a change? So are we going to see that people are going to be buying more limes over lemons just because of that price change? That's the question here. We want to focus in on why there was a behavior change because of that price change. And that's what microeconomics is really studying. Now, when we look at macroeconomics, we are looking at rather the operations within that nation itself, and the economy. So we're looking at the U.S.A.'s economy, and we're looking at what's the operations that's all evolved in the U.S.A. And then we can take that further and be like, how is the U.S.A. now differing from other countries' economies? What do they look like? What does it look like in Australia as compared to the USA? What does it look like in China as compared to the USA or Japan? And we're looking at all those different types of factors and seeing how the operations are differing. And that is what macroeconomics is really looking at. So you can kind of see that whole idea of the business environments playing into here, because the micro is looking at why it's going more deeper into like why certain behaviors are happening, just like in our micro environment. We're looking more at the internal aspects. But in our macroeconomics environment, we are focused on the more broader aspects. We want to see the overall operations. We're looking at the external things. So it really is like a similar play here, and that's why it was really important to cover the business environments first before we kind of got into economics, because it just gave you that better understanding or knowledge base to work from. Now that we've got an idea about what economics means and its overall definition, we can actually say that there is a further definition to economics, and that is the study of scarce resources and how we are allocating those resources in a careful manner to specific individuals or organizations. So the key here is that we're looking at scarce resources, not just any resource now. Scarce resources are those things that we might not have a lot of, so they're like limited in quantity, such as unrenewable resources like raw materials. So we're looking at like coal or oil, those type of things. They are limited in supply. So how are we going to go about actually distributing those to people that need it or to organizations that need it in order to function? And this has kind of led to another study, and that study is called resource development. And resource development is looking about how are we going to be able to increase these kinds of resources, or at least provide that better condition or environment for us to actually be able to make use of those resources in a better way or in a better manner. A great example here would be coal. So if we're looking at coal, we know that coal is used to generate electricity, but it's limited in quantity. We don't have a lot of it. It's going to run out eventually because of it being such a sought after resource. And that makes it a scarce resource. And that now has led to us trying to develop new ways to produce electricity. So we've got, like, for example, solar power. Solar power is now replacing that whole aspect of having to use coal in order to generate electricity. And though it's still not widely used, it is being implemented, especially among companies who are using this as their extra source of electricity and to help cut costs and things. So that's really how research development is starting to change. We also have other examples such as 3D modeling. Just think about the benefits that has provided when it comes to humans. So if you're in a hospital and you need a certain organ or something like that, one day we might be able to produce and create different organs for people to help them and to save lives. So that's another way of looking at scarce resources and how resource development has actually created this whole new aspect to the economy and to economics itself, and how we are studying how we're actually allocating different resources. And speaking on resources, if we consider back to our discussion on episode 3 about the factors of reduction, we looked at this thing called knowledge. And interesting enough, macroeconomists believe that knowledge has become a very important resource for a country. It helps to determine its wealth, as we spoke about when we were looking at knowledge societies. But the key aspect here that we need to consider is that not everybody's going to go out of their way to share knowledge. So where does that leave us? Well, Adam Smith, an economist, actually notes this under his theories. He sees that business owners are not actually out there to go and help other people. They are in it for their own self-interest. I mean, just take, for example, as a business owner, what is your main priority? You probably want to earn profits. That is more of a self-interest. And you want to gain those career aspirations and goals that you had for yourself when you created that business. You're not out there willingly normally to go and help somebody, unless of course you're focused on social impact and wanting to meet certain social causes as a business. But when we're looking at just general business ownership, it's focused more on self-interest of the person who owns that business, or the people who own that business, or who are sharing that business. So that just points to the fact that we're not seeing that wish to go and help other people willingly or to share information willingly or even resources willingly. And ironically, it actually has led to a further type of theory that was denoted by Adam Smith as well. And he calls this theory the invisible hand. So the invisible hand is basically saying that even though we see business owners not being out there to generally help people, they still are helping people. So if we take an example, let's look at this. You've got your business owner. He wants to go and make a profit. That's his interest. His self-interest in opening that business, becoming an entrepreneur, was to go and make certain profits, to set certain goal aspirations, to meet certain career aspirations that he had for himself. But the key here is that he still might need somebody else to help him along the way, and that's where employees come in. So as this business owner is now working and generating wealth, he's also creating jobs, and he's creating new products and services along the way, and those jobs get given to employees. And employees are now gaining the aspects of growth and income and all of those type of things that is actually driving their own livelihoods. And because of the impact that a business owner is now having on employees, in turn, employees are also having an impact on the community in which that business is operating just as much as the business owner is. Because we see that most oftentimes, if we're not working remotely, of course, that a lot of people who work in certain businesses live in that same community or at least close to that community. And because of that, they're actually helping that community to grow, to generate wealth, and to become more economically friendly and wealthy. And ironically, all of that helps to contribute to the broader nation, and that builds our economy. And that is how small business actually helps to drive the American economy. And that is where we're going to be ending for today. So when we come back to next week's lesson, we're going to be focusing in on capitalism and looking at the U.S.A. as our capitalistic market example. And we're going to be looking at advantages and discussing a disadvantage or two, and also seeing why our economy is thriving as compared to other countries. So until next week, have a great week ahead, and thank you for joining me. Bye!